Greetings, everyone. It looks like that shelf's about to fall on me. It actually isn't. Everything's okay. It's all good and stable there. Don't worry. I'm not about to have a horrible accident. Uh, yes, the collection is a disaster right now after the move. Literally the only thing that's organized is the Doctor Who's. The horrors are on their shelf, but they're all out of order. Like, it's just a mess over there. Yeah, I need to get more shelves, bottom line. And now I actually have the space for it. I can put another shelf over there. I'm actually thinking of doing a dedicated Doctor Who shelf. Well, not thinking of, that is what I'm going to do. So anything and everything I have that's Doctor Who will be on that shelf. So books, comics, magazines, books, more books, DVDs, Blu-rays, action figures, model kits, whatever. Anything that I have, CDs, music, yeah, pretty much everything. Everything's going to be on that shelf. And that will probably be over there. So, where the... Here, I'll just show you. Here, look. Look, I'll show you. There. You see where the VHS tower is now? And the pictures? That stuff's going to move. And I'm going to put the Doctor Who shelf right there. So I will be close to all of my Who-ness at all times. And it will be wonderful and lovely and delicious. Alright, so anyway, you'll see that whenever it happens. Probably sometime later this month. Anyway, Target Memories, Part 2. Yes, it only took 3 months to get to it, but hey, it's been a busy 3 months. Yeah, so I thought it was high time we continued on with the Target Memory series. I envisioned it as 3 parts, and we only did part 1. So let's get on to part 2. So in part 1, we talked about the First Doctor adventures and how, for many of us, the Target novelizations were our only way to experience those early stories. I mean, in my case, for two reasons. I mean, they weren't available in my area. Like, even the ones that existed were not available in my area for a very long time. It was several years before they started showing the early 60s adventures in my neck of the woods. So the Target novels were the only way I could experience those stories. And number 2, a lot of the stories, of course, missing. So they hadn't released the audio tracks publicly yet, or remastered them or made them available in any form. So the only way we could experience those early missing stories, even if the existing ones were being shown in your area, was the Target novels. That was it. That was our only option. So we didn't have the years tapes for the orphaned episodes or anything like that. With the VHS releases hadn't started, were just kind of starting to come out, and there weren't a lot of those available yet. So there was no other way to experience those early stories except for the Target novels. And bless every one of them, because it was great. I mean, for me personally, my first experience with the first and second Doctor's adventures was reading the Target books. Well, in particular, the second Doctor. I actually read some of his adventures before reading the first Doctor. Like, I didn't really read them in any kind of order. I just kind of read them as I got them. And some I had for years and just never got around to reading. But there was a couple in particular I wanted to talk about that were my personal first experiences with the second Doctor. And what a wonderful pair of stories they were, too. So let's talk about it. Target Memories, Part 2, featuring the second Doctor, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Timey-wimey Tuesday. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm trying to remember which one I read first, because I got them both around the same time. I'm pretty sure it was this one, which was Doctor Who and the Cybermen. Now, this is the original release of it. This one's actually been re-released a few times over the years. You can see that there's the original release. And then there was a re-release of it in 2011, which essentially has the original artwork on it and the old 70s logo. And then there was this edition. This is the one that I had. Completely different cover. Wonderful painted artwork. And of course has the neon logo because it was released in the 80s. Most of the Doctor Who books that I got either had the 70s diamond logo or the 80s neon logo. That was the vast majority of them. And then a handful had the the Sylvester McCoy era logo on it. But this was interesting to me because it was just called Doctor Who and the Cybermen. So as far as I knew, I didn't know anything about the 10th planet. So as far as I was concerned, this was the first ever Cybermen adventure. I quickly realized I was wrong, but because I think there's some references to their previous encounter with the Cybermen in the actual story. But this was my introduction to the second Doctor. It was my introduction to the classic Cybermen. I had of course seen Revenge of the Cybermen many times before, and I was always curious because I had seen a guide of the early stories, like an episode guide or a story guide, I guess. And I was always curious about the earlier Cybermen adventures because there were so many of them. There was a lot during this. Like 4 or 5 Cybermen adventures. There's 10th Planet, Moonbase, Wheel in Space, and the Invasion. So 4 Cybermen adventures throughout the 60s. And the only one I had ever seen was Revenge of the Cybermen. So I was really curious about these early adventures. So I picked this one up thinking that it was the first ever Cybermen story. I wanted to know the origins of the Cybermen. And I think the book actually does have a preface, or a preface, however you want to pronounce it. A preface. It's the face before the face. Okay, anyway, it goes into the origins of the Cybermen. So I still got what I wanted from it. It just wasn't the first Cybermen story. But boy, what an awesome story. The book really captures the sort of claustrophobic fear aspect of the story. The fact that, it's a good old-fashioned base under siege story. There was a lot of those in the Second Doctor's era, and I've always liked those because, one of my favorite movies of all time, of course, as you know, is John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982, which is a wonderful claustrophobic sci-fi horror story. In many ways, it almost feels like a Doctor Who story because you've got these men trapped on this Arctic research base. They can't get out. The storm's got them blocked in. They can't fly away. The helicopter won't fly in the storm. They're stuck in there. And then there's a monster that's slowly killing all of them. How does that not sound like a Doctor Who story, So if you ever wonder why I love The Thing so much, well, that's, one of many, many, many reasons. It's just a great film all around. But it very much does have the feel of one of those old school stories. So you look at the Cybermen, which is actually the Moonbase, which we do have on DVD now. This is story number 33. It has that same kind of vibe to it. It's in this case it's on the moon, but it might as well be an Arctic research base. And in this case, you have a mysterious plague that's killing people, and then you've got the Cybermen who show up, and apparently they're the ones behind the plague, and then they're trying to take over the base and kill everybody, and it's just got this wonderful feeling of claustrophobic terror. The first couple episodes in particular are very mysterious. It's all about there's this plague wiping people out. They don't know what's going on. They don't know where it's coming from. And it's very scary. And the Doctor's investigating and such. And it really does have this dark kind of vibe to it. The Doctor has some great moments as he's, investigating and whatnot, and just kind of irritating everybody, gathering samples for his experiments to figure out, try to analyze the source of the plague and whatnot and figure out where it's coming from. But for the most part, it's very serious and played for the horror aspect of it. The fact that there's this unstoppable plague, and then the Cybermen show up, and it's great. And you got some moments with Jamie that he gets the plague and he's kind of hallucinating. He's one of the first to see a Cyberman. He thinks it's the Piper, who is basically like, I guess, the Scottish version of Death, that he's come to take him to the afterlife, and he freaks out and such. Jamie didn't actually get a lot to do in that story because he was still fairly new. I think this was only his second story, if I remember correctly, second or third story. and the author Kit Pedler, I guess, just didn't really know what to do with him. So Jamie's unconscious through most of the story, afflicted with the plague. But yeah, it's good fun. And I talked about last time how when you read the book and then you watch the story, you kind of have in your mind this mishmash of both versions of the story. And the Moonbase is definitely one of those for me. Every time I watch it, it's like what I'm seeing on screen. Because I'll be honest with you, the novel actually gets more of the paranoid fear and atmospheric tension of it more intense than the televised version does. I mean, just due to the limitations of budget and whatnot, I guess. But the tension in the novelized version is far more tense, very tense tension. However, I find when I watch the Moonbase now, I'm seeing these things playing out on screen, but at the same time recalling the feelings that those moments created in me while reading the novel. So again, we have a mishmash of experiences creating a richer experience from having those things combined. And yeah, I definitely recommend doing that as much as you possibly can, reading the novels and then watching the show. Not all the novels are as effective in that way. I mean, some of them are very much just straight up adaptations, a lot of he said, she said stuff. But the better ones really do get the tone right. And the Moonbase, I think, was definitely one of the better ones, or Doctor Who and the Cybermen, as the novelization is called. And it's been re-released recently, so you can actually get it fairly easily, which is pretty cool. There's been quite a chunk of the Target line re-released over the past few years. I haven't picked any of them up because I'm really more keen to get the ones that I used to have, and some of the older releases, because the re-releases go with the original cover art, just slightly cleaned up for the modern presentation. But not all of them do. Like, for example, there's some recent ones that were released just today, actually. I think today, this is being recorded on May 3rd. And, well, I guess you'll be seeing a little later on May 3rd. So, anyway, they were just released today. And I noticed some of them were, like, 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctor stories, but using that old style of artwork like you saw in the original releases that I showed you a few minutes ago. Now, the original Target novels of those particular stories did not have that cover art. That's actually new cover art done in the old style for these re-releases specifically. I don't know why. I guess they just want to give them all make them all kind of uniform as far as how they look. Which is unfortunate because a lot of as I showed you here with like the re-release of the Cybermen from back in the 80s, you had these beautiful full-color painted artwork covers that some of them were just stunning to look at, just beautiful pieces of art, really capturing the essence of those stories. And it'd be nice to see those get a re-release of some kind, but maybe it's a rights issue with the artists. I don't know, who knows. Anyway, carrying on, one of the other Target books that I read, and I honestly don't remember which one I read first. It may have been this one. I honestly don't remember. It was so long ago. But they were pretty close together. So this one may have been my first experience with the Second Doctor. It may not. But what it was this one here, which is actually one of the ones that was just re-released today, coincidentally. I actually had no idea. I was looking for cover art to put up on the thing here, and I found this one, and all the listings said May 3rd. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Was this released today? Like, what are the odds? I just happened to be doing this video on the same day. Anyway, so here you go. So this is the re-release, this is the original artwork for the Abominable Snowmen. Very cool. First appearance of the Yeti. First appearance of Professor Travers, who was in a number of Second Doctor stories. Also in Downtime, the fan story that recently became kind of canon, sort of. And then we have the 2016 re-release, released just today, of this. I'll include Amazon links, by the way, in the description to the stories that have been re-released. There's been a re-release of Doctor Who and the Cybermen as well, which, well, as I showed you. So I'll include links to those down below if you want to check them out and not have to pay an arm and a leg for the original printings. And then we have this edition, which is, as you can see, it was released in the 80s, has the neon logo, and is quite nice. Yeah, so this one was actually released a few times over the years. You can see it's obviously one of the fairly highly regarded stories. So we actually had 2 releases in the 70s. Had the original release and then the diamond logo release, which I showed there. And then we had the neon tubing release, which is the one that I had. And it appears to me that this is a new painting that was done for this cover. Because you have the Yeti from the same angle and same kind of shot, but rendered much more realistically than the original version of the artwork. So quite nice. I always liked this cover a lot. This was also notable in that I think the same goes for the Cybermen. It was one of the Doctor Who releases that actually had hand-drawn artwork, like illustrations to accompany the story. Some of the earlier ones had that. They eventually abandoned it and just went with straight up text. But it's cool to see those because you see these artist renditions of these characters that you know and whatnot, and really cool. I like that. So yeah, I mean, again, this was my introduction to the Yeti. I had heard about them, I had read about them in some of the magazines and whatnot, but obviously not having access to the single surviving episode from this story or the audio track, this was the only way to experience the story. And again, almost kind of a claustrophobic story. In this case, takes place primarily in a Tibetan monastery, and there's this alien consciousness there that's causing some trouble. It's been a while since I've experienced the story. Well, I recently actually watched a fan reconstruction of it using the audio tracks, and that was quite good. That was the first time I'd actually seen the story in any kind of complete form, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I love that. I mean, you gotta love the Yeti. And then I should mention the if you want to see the only surviving episode, it's available on the Lost in Time DVD set. So check that out. Very cool. Sadly, only one of the 6 episodes survives. There was an audio release of the audio track a while back, and you can find some fan reconstructions kicking around the web. But that said, definitely read the book. It's another good one. And again, I really enjoyed it just for being able to experience that story. And to see what the big deal was about the Yeti all this time, and it was wonderful. It's just a wonderful story. And then last but certainly not least, I also had this novel here, which has also been recently re-released, by the way. Again, link in the description if you want to check it out. So we have The Web of Fear, which is, of course, the so-called Unit Seed story. This is the one that introduces Colonel Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, and we see Professor Travers again. And in this case, this is the one that most people remember when they talk about the Yeti, because this is where they invade the London Underground, and some very iconic moments in that. Now, up until recently, only 1 episode survived. However, they found 4 of the other 5 episodes and put it out on DVD. Yes! So this was around the time of the 50th anniversary, I believe. Oh, shortly after, actually, it was 2014. So after the 50th anniversary, so we just got this on DVD recently. They're missing episode 3. Yeah, episode 3, which is unfortunate. There is a rumor that they actually found episode 3, but it was snapped up by a private collector before a deal could be struck. No confirmation one way or the other. That's strictly rumor. I think it's just wishful thinking on the part of the fans. Just thinking like, whoa, that one episode's out there somewhere. That jerk of a private collector, how dare he keep it from the fans? And, whatever. It's like, well, until you actually produce evidence to say, yes, this guy right here did that. Scum. I don't know. But anyway, so we have a very kind of lame photo snap reconstruction on this. Why is it the fans do better photo reconstructions of episodes than the BBC themselves? Seriously. I don't know. Anyway, they kind of rushed this one out, so they did the quick restoration of the episodes and then rushed it out rather than animating the one surviving episode or one missing episode. It's unfortunate. Episode 3 is very significant in that it is the first appearance of Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, and for that reason, that only served to fuel the rumor that that's why that fan wanted to keep it, so he would be the only person in the world to possess that episode, that key episode in the series. And yeah, it was, again, rumors. Come on, people, rumors. No proof, one way or the other. Just stop with the rumor mill already, for God's sake. Let's stick to the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. All right. So, that said, I just kind of mentioned the Web of Fear as an aside because it is one that I owned. But I never actually got around to reading it. I think I started reading it, I just never got around to finishing it and just kind of got distracted with other things, and that was that. So, I don't know what to tell you, but, I've since experienced the story in several forms through the, obviously the rediscovered episodes, and then prior to that with another one of those lovely fan reconstructions. And then, of course, the one surviving episode, which is available, or up until recently, the one surviving episode, which is also available on the Lost in Time set. So you'll find links to all of these in the description, as well as the most recent releases of the novels. So you can check all this stuff out. How awesome is that? So actually, all 3 of these are available now in re-release form. So I don't know how far they're going to go with the Target re-releases. It's pretty cool. I'm probably going to pick them up at some point just to have, not too valuable reading copies of them, and then track down the originals just for collecting purposes, and for the alternate cover art, obviously. Yeah, I do love the Target books. Alrighty, so that is it for this edition, so I will see you again next week, next Tuesday, for the epic conclusion of Target Memories. Yes, just a few more to talk about here. This is by no means a definitive overview of all the Target books. That would take forever. But when I get around to doing the individual story reviews, if I've managed to track down the novels, maybe what I'll do is read the novels as well as watch the stories and the extra, and just do like super deluxe reviews of like, okay, this is what the novel was like, this is what the story was like, here's what the DVD is like, and just go all out for every single story. That's what I'd ideally like to do. It's just a matter of finding the time to do so, because doing that for every single story would be a huge time commitment. So episodes would be very few and far between, needless to say. Maybe I'll do like a couple a month or something. I don't know. We'll figure something out when we get there. Yeah, what else was I gonna say? I've forgotten. Anyway, awesome. Target bucks. Yay! Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Needless to say, as I'm sure you noticed, these are ones I no longer own. They were in that infamous box that fell off the truck or was stolen or whatever. Yeah. So, and I have not managed to reacquire them, but eventually, maybe I'll get the re-releases at least to have them in some form. Anyway, rambling now. We'll see you next time. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, especially Kyle Pellegrini. Thank you very much, Kyle, for continuing to be my highest level sponsor. Really appreciate it, dude. And yeah, so we'll see you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara. Oh, we're recording. That's air. It's not... Well, that's the bulge, but that's air. Just had to scratch my chest. The dense jungle of my chest hair makes it itchy. Alright. The manliest Doctor Who video ever. This is the Bro Who vid. No, it's not.